Welcome to another episode of the Low Point Podcast, where we use the 5 pillars of better golf to help golfers unlock the next level of their game. I'm Ryan, here with my co-host Nick, and we understand that every good swing and every golfer's journey has a low point. Today, we kick off the 2026 season by recapping our 5 pillars of better golf philosophy, review the offseason and what we've been working on since last season's finale, and declare our goals for the year. Let's jump in. All right, Nick, how you been, man? How's it been the last few months in the world, in the golf game? Well, maybe not the world. Let's skip the world. The world's
that's a whole other podcast. Yeah, that's
definitely another podcast. We can skip the world. Maybe before we even get to the golf, maybe we just talk about ourselves again. I guess we put out our first season last year. We had an off season. We might have some new listeners because I think our timing is a little better with the golf season this year. So I think we probably need to reintroduce ourselves and our 5 pillars of better golf philosophy. What do you think?
Yeah, no, sure. So I'm Nick. I'm a low teens handicapped. I've been playing golf since high school, off and on. You know, it's been a love of mine for a large part of my life, but have always found it difficult to sort of break through, as a lot of golfers do. And part of the reason why we're on this podcast together, Ryan, is because, you know, we're both trying to figure out how to break through. And, you know, I think there's a lot of area between ourselves and a lot of the other educational tutorial type golf content out there on social media. And so we're trying to fill that void of just people who are trying to get marginally better and maybe provide a little bit more structure to their game. So Ryan, you want to go?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Ryan. I was a 5 handicap. I'm not. It went up to 8 over the last season. But I think what we were hoping of getting out of this podcast is talking about the 2 stages of our game and what's the difference and how do you go from a 15 to a 5, and how do you improve from a 5 when you've got all the factors of life and kids and day jobs and all of that? And like, what does it practically mean? And I think we've got our 5 pillars of better golf philosophy to help support that. I think one of the other things that I would add to this is just our differences in geography. I think that kind of makes for a fun additional perspective on this. I live in North Carolina. You live in Southern California. We are both people who like to travel for golf. So we got some, sprinkle in some noteworthy courses that are not in those 2 locations over the year.
Yep.
And quite frankly, I'm super excited about this year.
Yeah, I share your excitement. I think 2025, and frankly, I do credit a lot of it to the podcast, where because we were talking about it so frequently and because we were providing a little bit more structure to the game, I think that helped me, at least as a, mid-handicap player, focus a lot more. And, I'll talk about this a little bit in terms of my goals for this year. But I think if you go back and re-listen to our first season, there was a big turning point in terms of how I was able to sort of refocus on my game. And a lot of that also came from this idea that I had to talk about it at the end of the week with you. And so I'm pretty excited about where I stand today. I think I'm going into 2026 with a lot more confidence. It's not ironclad, so we'll talk about that, but definitely more confidence than I've ever had in my golf game.
I like that over the course of the last year, it felt like we had an accountability partner in our pursuit of getting better at golf, right? Like, you and I played a lot together when I lived in Southern California alongside each other and got to know each other's games and discuss our games and all that. But it's been a little different, right? It creates a different dynamic where we're talking about it with each other and talking about what's going well, what's going through our head in from afar in a way that was a little different than we were playing all the time. So yeah, I think where we can go from here is reintroduce our 5 pillars of better golf philosophy. That's been our guiding principle here. There are 5, like I said, there are five pillars, 5 elements to this. The physical and mental are 2 big pieces that I think everybody kind of understands or are parts of game improvement of any sport, right? But we also talk about equipment, strategy, and practice. We can dig into each one of these, but said another way, you can look at the acronym of PEMPS, not PIMPS, Nick, but PEMPS. PEMPS with an E. Physical, which is just really focusing on, are you in shape? Can your body do what you want it to do? The equipment, do you have the right equipment? I want to dig into this one a little bit more this year too, on the technology side. I think golf technology, like the apps we use, is a area that is emerging, I think, or has been emerging for some time. It's kind of taking shape. There's some really compelling apps out there to help your game, but there's a lot of noise out there too. I think digging into this at some point this year is interesting mental. So, it's cliche at this point about golf being the 6 inches between your ears is the most important part of the golf
Yeah,
course.
that's right.
So I think this is one where, not to get ahead of ourselves, but you made big strides last year on that part.
And a lot of
And a lot of people can.
a lot of people just don't know how to rein it in. And I'm not saying I'm a expert. I'm not a mental ninja by any stretch, but marginal improvements here help a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all just trying to get better a little bit by a little bit here. Practice, I think this is an area where a lot of people don't necessarily think about it the right way. I think they need to get to the range. They need to hit balls all the time. And I think we haven't really focused on this a ton. I think we talked about it a little bit, but I think it's an interesting area to talk about again this year. And then strategy. We did talk about this quite a bit last year. And I think this to me, is an area, it used to be called golf course management. I think, people don't talk about it in quite the same way, but back in Tiger's heyday, that was the term. How do you get around the course? Where do you actually hit the ball? Where do you miss? There's a lot more data on it now. Strokes gain philosophy can really inform this. I think that's the lens in which we like to look at the strategy part of this as well.
And I think what's also really interesting about these pillars, and I think you and I, as different golfers, even though I'm obviously striving to be where you are, I think we prioritize these things differently. And, you mentioned it in brief about dealing with regular lives on top of trying to improve our golf games. I think that's a big deterrent when we're thinking about things like equipment, like budget becomes a consideration, or practice, where time becomes a consideration. Like both you and I have small kids. You're expecting another one this year, right? So your life's about to get twice as busy. And we both have full-time jobs. We have other commitments, outside of golf. And so finding the time and resources to do all these things is difficult. And so the way you prioritize them might be different for each individual. But I think figuring out the right calculus amongst these five is sort of what we're hoping to achieve. And even if it is a little bit different than, between you and I.
Right. I think that's a really good point. I like the calculus analogy there, because I think most people think about it like arithmetic. Like if I just go to the range and I hit this many balls this often and do, X, Y, Z, I'm going to end up with, this handicap at the end of it. I suppose that's algebra, not arithmetic. But I do think that
it's actually more interesting, because calculus also determines the rate of diminishing returns, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
if you think about it, golf has a lot of calculus in it, because as we'll talk about with practice, I think there's a huge law of diminishing returns with practice.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on. I think where I was going with that actually is saying that, if we want to exit the math piece of this and think about the lack of time, lack of budget, those are constraints that people have. Their constraints are different. And if you want to think about it from the art side, they say every artist needs their constraints. And so I think actually recognizing and understanding your constraints and then acting in accordance with what those are versus being in denial about what those are, which I think most amateur golfers are, that's really the key to unlocking the next step to your game. And it might not be taking you from a 15 to a 5 in 1 year, but if you can get a couple strokes better and meaningfully feel better on the golf course, or feel more confident in the golf course, eventually you're going to break through. And I think that's how a lot of golf breakthroughs happen, is, getting close, feeling like you're close for a long period of time, until one day you show up and you're just a different golfer.
Yeah. And I think that's a good segue also for our new listeners to understand what this podcast is not. So this podcast is not a quick fix tool. I think we've talked about this a lot on the podcast. We talk a lot about it off the podcast, but success is not linear. There will be peaks and valleys. It's the reason why we called this podcast The Low Point. There may be situations where you feel like you're getting a lot worse before you get a lot better. And that's just part of the growth that it takes to become better. And I think every athlete, every person who has succeeded in their life has gone through hardship. And I think golf is no different. I think it's not two guys who know everything. So we will make mistakes. I think we'll go down some avenues that may have dead ends. I think we invite you to join us on the journey, and maybe by listening to us, you can avoid those same mistakes. But like, for instance, I used to be someone who thought that the equipment was just going to solve all my issues, right? And if I just got fitted, if I just if I just bought the right ball, I'll be able to solve all my problems. As we'll talk about, there is a reason why pros play a certain way or certain equipment, and we play certain equipment in a certain way. And so I think finding the right match is also really, really important. Like, don't play blades if you're a mid handicapper. It's just not going to be a smart thing to do. Frankly, I don't think a lot of tour guys play full blades anymore either.
I think it was Max Homa who famously was asked if he played blades, and he said, "No, I'm not good enough to hit blades." What are you talking about?
Yeah. So I think there's like a lot of that, and so we're not two guys who have all the answers. And the last thing I'll say is, I think we're two normal guys, just like a lot of the people who are listening to this. And so we're not professionals. So we may, again, take our advice a little bit with a grain of salt. Like, we're not PGA, we're not PGA professionals. We're not teachers. We don't have clients. We're just experimenting ourselves. So I think it's just important to, maybe it's a 2B of what I just said, but I just want to claim that we're not accredited in any sort of way, shape, or form. So like, what we're doing is really just two normal guys talking about our golf games and trying to improve.
Yeah, that's our disclaimer there.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, so why don't we talk about where we're at right now? I think if we talk about, I want to recap. I want to hear a little bit more about your off season. You and I have kept in touch, but I think I'd like to kind of hear how you're thinking about your off season now that it is kind of wrapped up, right? We're in March. The weather's getting warmer across the country. The grass in my yard is turning green now. I think I'd like to hear not just what you were working on at the off season. I guess tell me, were you focused on something in the off season? Have you just been trying to get out whenever you can? Have you been making progress on anything? And let's start with that before we get into our goals for the year.
When we started this podcast, I was a 15.9 handicap, so round up to 16. And I'd gotten down to a 13.5, and then, it's bounced a little bit, but now at a 13.7. Some of that work came in the off season. I think it hasn't been as productive as I maybe wanted it to be when we finished the last season. I've probably gone out, 4 or 5 times in the last 4 or 5 months. Combination of, it being the holidays, difficult to sort of get out. Work's obviously picked up, as we talked on before we hit jumped up.
The days are shorter.
Days are shorter. The weather's colder. That has less of an issue with it, but it's more just about finding the right time. The few times I did go out, I think were pretty encouraging, and I've played a full 18, and those have been pretty encouraging. No big blow up scores to report. There have been blow up holes certainly in periods where it was difficult to sort of get out of the muck, but like generally speaking, kept scores within a tight range. Last 18 I played was maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and I shot an 85 at a course that I generally don't break 90. And so that felt pretty good for me. Was able to sort of, I hit the ball well. It didn't require a ton of scrambling, but I wasn't perfect off the tee either. And so I think my scrambling ability feels like it's in a good place going into the 2026 season. And then in terms of practice, there was a period in which I was trying to get in and do a lot more practice, really focusing on ball striking in the off season, Ryan. Like when I was at the range, and there was a period probably in January and February, I was going to the range once or twice every week and just putting a towel down 1 club head length from the ball and just using the towel drill. You can look up on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, but a great ball striking drill of just, I just don't hit the towel is essentially the and then as you get better and as you progress with that drill, you can move the towel closer and closer to the ball. I probably wouldn't go closer than 2 inches, but, just really trying to focus on getting the hand press forward, hitting the ball first, not trying to put weight on my back foot too much through the impact. So I think that's been really helpful in terms of not only improving my scrambling, because I actually think what I really focused on in scrambling is getting ball first contact, because what I'm really just trying to focus on is getting the ball back in play. And there's nothing worse than if you're if you're in a spot of trouble and you hit the ball fat or you hit it thin, and it just goes into some terrible other place. So, anyways, that's been really helpful, and been working on my chipping a lot too, which has gotten a lot better. It can improve some more, but I've definitely gotten more comfortable with it. I've been using a variety of different drills, which I can touch on because I'll talk about it in my practice here too. But yeah, that's been my off season. How about you, Ryan?
That's awesome. Well, I have a couple questions for you first. So, or comment.
Yeah, go for it.
First comment, the fact that you're going into a season feeling confident, going into a season feeling confident about your short game is so key, because I think that's what goes away when you don't play often, usually. And so for you to go in and say, I've been putting in work so that not only am I not regressing there, I'm actually improving and feeling better about it than you were before. I think like that's awesome. I think that's a really cool place to start the season. And I think that's an area you and I have discussed, like that's an area that can meaningfully move the needle on your handicap, right? Is being comfortable with your wedges. The other part of your game that we had discussed is something that could move the needle. You made a lot of progress on last year, beginning with, as I witnessed, that Aaron Hill's your driver. And you had said that you were continuing to feel good about the driver, at least the early part of this year. I haven't heard much lately on that. Like, are you still feeling good there as well?
Yeah, I mean, again, I haven't played enough. The time I went, I played the last 18. I drove the ball okay. I think the misses were more confined. So I still felt it wasn't perfect. There's definitely some improvement that could be made there. I'm still figuring out a couple of things. I'm trying to, I guess, to be more specific, what I'm really trying to do is shorten my backswing in a way where it feels much more controlled. Because what happens to me is if I feel that my swing is getting too long in the backswing, my trail hand gets really out of position and will open up almost like a forehand slice in tennis, and it lets open up the face, and I have this terrible push slice, and that's just
No, or no.
dead on. No bueno.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so that is, I'm just really trying to eliminate that. Really trying to eliminate the mental part of pushing the throttle too much on the driver. I think finding a more comfortable rhythm with the driver swing has been a big part of trying to rein it in. But yeah, I mean, it's been improved, but it can use some work. I think there's some vanity to it as well, right? Like I'm in pretty good shape for a 36-year-old, but I'd like to hit the ball farther than I hit it on average. But I will say that my average distance in this offseason has, on the driver at least, has picked up from, I think it was around 236 last season, and it's now closer to 260. So
Nice.
a 25-yard improvement. It's also like, I want to keep, like, it's not just power and speed. Keeping the ball online helps with distance. If you're hitting like a high spinny cut, like it's not going to go anywhere. So I'm making the same, like, I would make the same swing speed and has two completely different results just because I'm making better contact with the ball.
You're just not having 3 drives around that are 210-yard bloopers to right field, right? Yeah. Then those were bringing your averages way down. So that's awesome. That's super awesome. One other question here. You ended last season at a 13.7. You've played a number of rounds. Has that moved in any direction meaningfully since then?
No, it hasn't. I mean, I've only played 4 or 5 rounds, so I'm starting the season at 13.7. I mean, look, it's still great from where I was starting the season last year, and if I can make the same kind of progress, maybe I can flirt with single digits. Again, I'm feeling a lot more confident. I'm feeling like I'm not starting from ground zero this season. Like I feel like I'm still a running start. So I'm hoping that can improve. I think I'm playing this week, and I'm playing a little bit in April. So hopefully we can get some numbers down.
Yeah, I think this time of year and, through the holidays into March, it's a tough time to lower your handicap really almost anywhere that you live, right?
Yeah, just stable.
Like you just don't, if you can go flat throughout the low season, we'll call it, I think that's a great place to start the year. I even when I was playing in San Diego, always expected my handicap to go up a stroke or two through the winter months. But my off season, I didn't really get out much at all. It was Partially it was, a cold, wet winter here in North Carolina, but like I said earlier, the days are short, just tough to get out. I started a new job, just the schedule wasn't super conducive to it. So I've been focused. My off season has really been focused on the physical side. I know for those that listened last year, they'll be familiar with the fact that I was trying to figure out what might be going on with my hip, having little struggles, even having it impact the mental part of my game, which was for me was a big personal L to take at the end of the year because I had prided myself so much on the work I'd put into my mental game over the past few years, and I've really made a lot of progress. I on that side, I hate making this like a medical show, but got an MRI, really understood what was going on, got properly diagnosed with this hip impingement, which basically says on the front part of my hip, there's too much bone between the femur and the hip to really allow me to make the movement that I was trying to make. And I think what happened is it was always there, but the muscle compensations were just getting worse over time. So once I figured out what was going on, went back to physical therapy, have been making some real good progress and have gotten a lot of mobility back. I don't know how far I'll get on it. I don't know if I'll be able to avoid a surgery or not on it, but I will say that I am much more mobile, much more comfortable, and might have to make some, accommodations to stay that way for a little while. But it has greatly improved my ability to swing my golf swing the way I want to, which has been awesome.
Yeah.
I did not play from October to last week. Last week, I visited from
no simulators, nothing, no driving.
I hit the range a couple times, I think. Okay, so here's the timeline. I played my last round in mid-October. I've got some good golf in September, October, a little bit with you in California in September, and came back home, played a number of rounds. October, started the new job. It impacted my schedule. The days got shorter, all that good stuff. Went to the driving range, I think on a warm day in December. Had an opportunity to get out, hit some balls, so about a 2-month gap. Same thing, another 2-month gap, got out in February, but got out a couple of different times. So this is after doing a little extra physical therapy, starting to see some progress, feeling good with the swing, wasn't feeling sore or didn't feel like my lower back was compensating on my swing after hitting, 60, 70 balls on the range, which was nice. That was progress versus last year. And then put it to the test last week, went back, visited my family in Arizona. Played 4 days in a row, felt great. The first round, though, I got to say.
By the way, that's just a pause. Really, when you talked about, I don't think you're fully, for our listeners, like your hip issues were really bad. Like it was tough for you to walk 18, let alone play 4 days straight. I know not all of them were TPC Scottsdale, but like still to play 4 days straight is a huge, huge, huge improvement for you.
Yeah. And I took a cart all 4 days, I was playing in the retirement community and some things like that. But I think even with that, though, I was concerned, like getting in and out of the cart regularly. Like, how's that I'm just moving in a way that I haven't moved in a long time. How am I going to hold up? And I didn't know how my golf game was going to be. I'd really been able to get out, but I was able to swing my swing. I just went out with a really conservative mindset. I was very conservative, didn't hit a ton of drivers. That probably helped me feel good through 4 days to golf too. Went out, played the white tees my first day out, and I was hitting greens. I was hitting fairways. I was hitting greens. It was awesome. So I played maybe my best complete round of golf, not necessarily by handicap standards, but full complete round of golf the first day out. White tees on a course that still was 6,400. It wasn't the hardest course in the world, but it was decently long. It was a real golf course and ended up 3 inches away from making a putt for par on 18 that would have made even par for the entire round. I was 3 inches away after 5 months off from having an even par round, which was crazy. It was so crazy to me to be able to do that.
Do you think there is any... So sometimes I feel as though if I take time off, I almost forget a lot of the bad habits that I've formed. Like it's almost like necessary to cleanse yourself
Yes.
of things that like, and I'll talk about this later when we go through our goals, but cleanse yourself of all like the stuff in your head and the I can't do this, or I missed the last 3 or 4 shots like this, like, oh, I hate this yardage, oh, I hate this club, oh, I hate this hole, like getting rid of all of that by just taking time off. I feel
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. No, I came back and I told my wife what I scored, and she's like, "You always play great after you take time off." Like, it's like, yeah, I do. I do. And I think it's you go out, you don't have any expectations. I literally had zero expectations. I was like, I'm playing 18 holes with some retirees. I'm going to play from the white tees. I'm just going to try and have fun. Like, I'm just happy to be here. If I can get through this round without my hip and my lower back hurting, that is a win. And then I was, 14 holes in, and I think I was one under, and I was just,
Did you
I
keep it
realized
the
I
whole
had an
way?
opportunity.
Did you keep it
Yeah.
for the whole way, or did you only realize you were one under at the 14th hole?
No, I knew the whole time.
Okay.
I knew the whole time because I think I had made 3 birdies at that point, and I had made a ton of pars, and I was like,
I
I
know
was scrambling pretty well.
all these people who say like they don't keep score. It's like it's a great. I think it could definitely be a good strategy for people. I just can't get out of my own head. I know what I score on every hole, and I'm kind of doing the math in my head in the background, either consciously
Yeah.
or unconsciously.
Yeah. I think I knew it when you go out and you're not making double bogeys, you're making pars and bogeys and birdies. And you know at some point that I don't keep track every hole and I don't try to do that, but I know that hey, I'm somewhere between one under and one over right now, right? Like I know the 2 or 3 stroke area that I'm at where I know what I have the opportunity to get.
I would love to live in that. I would love to live in that zone. That would be a very nice, comfortable Goldilocks kind of zone.
Honestly, it made me think I should play from the white tees more. It felt so good. Like maybe I should just play from the white tees more. It course is more manageable. I don't know if it like for somebody who's distance though, like me, I don't think it will, and I think that's why I've avoided it.
So
But I did
I
I did end up with this round, which was I think it's a little discouraging. I would have a little disappointing. I would have if I made that putt, it still wouldn't have been a scratch round, right? I had a 2.8 differential with a 73 there. It would have been like 1.8 ish or whatever, right? And that's a little disappointing. But
I know a lot of guys, and look, it could be lying to me as well. There's a very good chance of that. But there's a couple guys I play with where they, will say their handicap is X, and then we'll be playing the same course. We'll be playing Rustic or something like that, which for our new listeners, I live like 20 minutes from Rustic Canyon here in LA, which is a fantastic public course, and I talk about it all the time, so buckle up. But we've been playing Rustic, and look, they'll shoot maybe low 80s, and I was like, oh, I thought you were a 2 or 3 handicap. It's like, and then I learned later it's because their home course they play is like a 6,000 yard sort of exec course, and that's just doesn't get they could drive the green every hole. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I do think that it can help your handicap by playing the forward tees. I think it helps your confidence a lot too, and I will touch on this. Actually, maybe this is a good time to touch on it because one of the big things I've been doing in the off season, Ryan, is I've been playing 9 holes at another local course that is not very long. I think the longest hole on the front 9 is 420 yards. And it's been bringing a 4-iron and down. So no woods.
nice.
This is actually, when we talk about the chipping and where I've gotten the confidence of the chipping, it's been from playing these like 9-hole rounds every so often. Just I call up place, hey, can you guys have a walk on? I come, I show up. Maybe I have time to hit 10 or 20 balls on the range, and then I just walk up to the first tee. It's fairly open. There's some water on some holes, but like generally speaking, it's a fairly short gettable course. I don't always score super well. Sometimes I'll still have blowups. Like that's the thing that I'm trying to really avoid this season is like the blows. But generally speaking, like I'll hit something and it'll be probably somewhere between 50 and 120 yards away from the green. And frankly, that's what I really want to work on. And even though I try to work on that on the range, nothing is like the course. And so,
Yeah.
like, because if I shank something on the range, I'll just try to, forget about it and I'll just load up the next ball. But here it's like a 1 of 1. And I think getting over that mental hurdle of like, all right, like, you just got to swing your swing here. Like that's something we'll talk, like, I know we're going to talk about our goals, but that's something I need to work on this season for sure.
I think what you're talking about with a shorter course there and still struggling to score is really important because a lot of those shorter courses, their defense is around their greens, right? If you think about Los Robles greens is another course that's not too far from you. Like that course is very short, but the greens are quick and they're tough and they're undulating. And that's what a lot of these retirement courses are that I played. There's one specifically that I played this time. So this is my second best round. It was the fourth round I played. um the shortest executive course amongst four of them, I think, in this retirement community, but it's known for having the toughest greens. This course always eats me alive because my putting has never been a strong part of my game. But after playing 4 days in a row, and I'll touch on this a little bit, but like the one thing I've focused on when I've gone to the range around a short game has been just practicing speed around 30-foot putts to make sure that I'm putting myself in a position to make a second putt. I was making putts that I don't normally make on that course. I ended up shooting, I think, I made 4 birdies in that round. Let me look at my score here. I shot 4 over 64 on a par 60. That was my second best round. Those are my 2 best rounds since my first kid was born a year and a half ago, right? So from a handicap differential perspective. And so it was really nice to be able to feel confident on those greens and just be able to swing my swing because my hip is improving. Now, there are other parts of my life I would like my hip to improve for, not just my golf swing, but it was a really great start to the season given the lack of actual golf that happened during my off season.
So I hope when you said speed, you not just meant the speed of your putts on the green, but also what we talked about in our last episode of our first season, which is the speed with which you address the ball because on your putts, because I commented that I think the thing that really holds you back in your putting is you overthink it. And I think you would just trust your intuition more.
It's interesting. I think the fact that I don't think I'm necessarily super quick to get to my putts still, but I think the fact that I have been practicing the longer putts has been helpful for me in picking up the line. So one of the things that I changed in my practice, like what I used to do to get when I got to the course, is try to putt to the edge of the green and just pick up on the speed. But now I do the same thing, but I pick a hole, right? I meaningfully shifted away from the hole before because I felt like it didn't give me a lot of confidence if I was trying to get it close and I didn't. And now I'm like, I don't actually care if I get close. I'm just calibrating. I'm just trying to get the feel, but I'm using a hole as the target instead. And I think it's just translated to me being able to read the greens quicker and get to the ball a little quicker. But I wouldn't say that anybody's looking at me and being like, oh, he just steps up and knocks it in now, right? Like that's not it. And especially on the short putts, I take my time on the short putts for sure too. But
no,
yeah.
When I played last week, I played 9 holes last week. The guy I played with was just like, I would just tap in everything within 3 feet. I would just step up to it, tap it in, and I would go in. And he was like, "How do you do that?" And I'm like, it's not hard. Like I'm taking in information as I'm walking up to my ball on the green. I'm taking in information as I saw my first putt roll. And I'm just taking in information as I walk up to tap in this second putt. Like it's not hard. And then I'm not second guessing the information that I'm digesting. I'm just like, I'm a good putter. I know how to putt it. And this is going to break an inch. This is going to break 2 inches. And that's it. And I always line up every putt unless I know it's a tricky green. I mean, sorry, I don't line up every short putt. I should say I line up every longer putt, but I don't line up every short putt unless it's for a score or unless it's on a tricky green. And so it's having that confidence to just sort of go in and say, it kind of circles back to your point about expectations. Like if I know that putt is for bogey in a round that I don't really care that much about, I'm tapping it and I'm making it every time. If it's for birdie to like win the club tournament, it's like I'm probably shaking over that putt and I'm going back and looking at it, 17 times, right? So I think there's a level of expectations to golf that are really, really important. It's funny. I don't want to backtrack too much, but like it was funny when you said to your wife that she comments that every time you play, you take a hiatus from playing, you play really well the next time.
Yeah.
My wife says something not like overly similar, but she says whenever we go on vacation, I play with rental clubs. I always play really well because when I'm on vacation and I don't have my clubs, I'm just like, I don't really care. Like, I don't know these clubs. Like, I don't know this course. I'm just going to go out there and play. And I usually shoot in the 80s, which I almost never shoot when I'm at home.
Yeah,
It's
that's funny. I get that. That makes sense. Yeah, that is very similar. That's very similar. I hate playing with clubs that are not my own. It's just one of those things I can't get over.
I
But
definitely feel
that's
the difference. I definitely feel the difference. When I get home and I tap my clubs, I'm like, oh yeah, baby, this is home. This is home, right?
this is
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Right. Speaking of expectations, should we just talk about our 2026 expectations?
Yeah, I am so excited to hear your goals for this year, Nick.
Oh man. Okay, I'm putting me on the spot first. All right. So
I mean, unless you don't want to, I'm happy to go first.
no. I love talking about myself. All right. So the first, and this is sort of coming out of the off season. This is a really important goal for me, and I'll characterize each of these within where they fit in the 5 pillars as well, which I think will be helpful for the framework. But the first one is pretty simple: just commit to a golf swing. So I've been working on a couple of things in the off season. I mentioned my driver swing, shortening it. I've been working a lot on my chipping and my pitching, and frankly my wedge game in general. And it's been a lot of, and when I've played, especially around these 9-hole rounds that I've been doing, it's been a lot of experimentation and a lot of just taking what I've had out on the driving range onto the golf course. And I think when I go out and I start playing 18, I try to switch that mindset and say, okay, it's no longer practice mode. Like now you have to play and you have to commit to the swing. And coming out of this transitional period where I've been working on a lot of things, I want to just very quickly in the season commit to a swing, especially with my irons, because my approach game can really improve, especially from the fairway. I've noticed on Arcos, my approach game from the fairway is actually worse than my approach game from the rough. So I think I really need to, I think that's because when I'm in a fairway, I'm probably thinking to myself, and I'm sure a lot of listeners think this, like, don't mess this up. Like, you bombed a drive, good job, get this on the green, get a green in regulation, 2-putt, we're home, right? And then you end up overthinking, like, oh, I got to get my hands in this position, I got to do this, and then you end up pulling it or pushing it. So
The other thing there, I think that's interesting is for like a big difference between like mid handicap and low handicap is what you were talking about earlier, and that's where how you contact the ball. Like hitting it out of the rough. I recall as a mid handicap myself, I liked hitting it out of the rough because it's almost like it's teed up a little higher. And then when you're in the fairway, it forces you to make better contact with the ball. You have generally better lies, but I think the more you work on that and like the progress you're making, even with your chipping game, you'll get used to that, like what the contact should feel like, and it'll help as well. Yeah, exactly.
and I notice as well, like what I've really noticed is I take on the golf course, I take very skinny divots. And so particularly with my irons, and I think that's partially with the way my irons have been fit to my game because I can have a very downward angle of attack. But I think trying to take a better divot and not just a very skinny ball, sort of looks like a ball diameter kind of divot would be helpful for me. So I put that probably kind of like toes the line between, I think it's more mental than physical, but it probably sits in both of those buckets. But I think getting the mental fortitude to just trust my swing and just not play golf swing is going to be helpful for big one for me this year. The second one is finding a game within the game. And we talked about this a little bit off season, Ryan, but like this goes into the strategy point where 18 holes of golf is a long journey, right? And there's a lot of ups and downs in that journey. And we've talked about situations where I'm not a good enough golfer to just go an entire round without at least one blow up hole. But how do I mitigate that so it's just kept to a hole or just kept to even a shot, which is what the best golfers do. And so I've been trying to experiment. I experimented a little bit last season with trying to find a game within the game. Maybe it's playing a 3-period set, right? And you're trying to play, instead of playing 2 9s, you're playing 3 6s, right? Or you're playing 6 periods of 3 holes, whatever it is. Or the other thing I experimented with last year is trying to play each hole to a different stroke than what is on the card. So some I would obviously play to the stroke on the card. Others, it's a trickier par 4, so I play it to 5 strokes, right? So I'm not feeling as much pressure. So I think like that's another way to like find a game within the game. And from a strategy perspective, I want to try to anchor to one philosophy around that this season. The next 2 are a little bit more, or the next 3 rather, are a bit more quantifiable. So the first one, I want to improve 3 shots gained on approach this season on my arcs relative to 8 handicap, which is where my sort of benchmark is set right now, even though it's not where I am, but that's where I want to be. So, and I want at least 1.8 shots gained from within 125 yards. So my average approach distance, which is kind of surprising to me, is 130 yards. And I am, I think, -4 shots gained relative to an 8 handicap on approach. So that tells me that I'm really missing a lot of stuff inside of that 125 mark.
This is interesting. Can we pause here for a second? Because I think I heard a lot of numbers, and I just want to make sure that I'm getting the full picture of what you're trying to accomplish. And I think it's similar for me, but we'll get there. So you're talking about shots within 125 yards, you said?
Yeah. So if I look at
Okay.
throws, I look at my approach category, and it tells you like the 3 things you got to work on the most. Shots from the fairway, approach shots away is number 1, and shots from, I think it's like 100 to 125 yards is number 2.
Okay. Got it. And you're setting strokes gained goals for yourself this year, like quantifiable strokes gained goals against an 8 handicap is what you're saying.
That's right. Because I mean,
That's awesome.
if it's just like open, then it's kind of harder to really, it's harder to measure, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So especially with that thing like where golf is very measurable, I wanted to create something that was a little bit measurable. But like I said, so right now, relative to an 8 handicap on Arcos, I have a -4 strokes loss, I guess, or -4.
Yeah. You're losing 4 strokes. Yeah.
I'm losing 4 on approach. And if I look at like what's killing me the most, it's a lot of it is the 100 to 124, and frankly even the 125 to 150. So like sort of that like 9 iron in range is really killing me. So really trying to make some improvement there. But the 50 to 125 seems like the easiest place to start in terms of just getting better and more dialed with my wedges. That's like the generic goals, like get more dialed with my wedges, but then how do I translate that into like real results? And so that's where I'm coming at with that one. Number 4, practice chipping with every session. So every practice session has to include chipping practice.
Mm-hmm.
That's
every single one.
Yeah, every single one.
How often do you think that you're going to practice?
I think I could probably get to once a week. I mean, on average.
Yeah. I like that. So would you just go to practice your chipping and call that a practice and not worry about getting the range then?
If I have limited time, then yes.
I like that.
If I only have 30 minutes to practice, I'm probably not pulling out anything other than my wedges.
I remember somebody saying that if they had limited time and they could only do one thing before getting out on the course, they would chip.
Yeah.
And I think because that's kind of calibrating your hands and the ball contact and the turf interaction as you mentioned earlier. So I like that. I like that a lot because I think it'll translate to your full swing too after a while.
Well, also, let's be honest, if you have limited time to warm up, you're probably not going to stripe your iron, even if you have a couple of minutes. Like, you're not going to hit every green, so you may as well work on scrambling, right?
Yeah, true.
By the way, can I spend just 1 minute on what's really been working for me on my chipping? Because I feel like it's been kind of like a going back to basics moment for me, and I feel like it's obvious that maybe you're going to like look at me and be like, well, you weren't doing that already. So, I think one has been the setup, and I can't stress this enough. I didn't realize how closed my stance was on chipping until I opened it up and realized how much easier my life would be if I just opened it up a lot. Yeah.
That's like the number one thing is having an open stance while chipping. It's interesting that
I would watch
you discovered that.
I mean, I would watch videos about it. And frankly, I've been going back to the whole like swing your golf swing thing. I've tried to completely rid myself of watching tutorial videos on golf on YouTube. It has just been way more destructive than additive to my game.
Yeah.
But like there's a couple of good ones that I still like will bookmark if I need some sort of like it gave me a swing thought that maybe worked or something like that. But like generally speaking, I used to be in my bed every night watching like golf video after golf video after golf video, and it was just terrible for me. So definitely got rid of that. But anyway, so opening up my stance and then opening up the club face to use the bounce more. I know these are like very obvious things, but what's actually really helped me too is just ball position. I think I was playing it too back in my stance, and now I've basically created two shots. I've created a high shot and a low shot, and the high shot is a little bit more just outside sort of my front foot, and then not outside my front, inside my front foot, I suppose. And then the low shot is more just center. And so I think before I was playing it a little too far back. Depending on the lie, sometimes I also like to practice a shot that is in line with my back foot, but that is not a shot that I hit with like my 60. That's a shot I hit with like a pitching wedge or 8-iron or something, like a bump and run kind of a shot, right? Yeah. Just trying to keep it low and just trying to hit the ball first and just focus on getting it low. So that's sort of a shot that I see if you ever have to hit something out of wood chips, or if you ever have to hit like under a tree branch or something like that. That's like the shots that I've just been practicing a lot too. So anyways, that has just given me a ton of confidence. And so I just want to keep that confidence going throughout the season, feel like I can recover with a up and down if I miss the green. And that's going to save a lot of strokes for me, I think.
Yeah.
Perfect, but it's getting there.
To me, the more and more I struggle with something, the more and more I wonder if it's just a setup issue. I've had that with when I'm struggling with my full swing. One of the reasons I was struggling with my putting a couple of years ago is because I was not putting with my eyes over the ball. For some reason, like I would just float my head one way or another, and it would just cause me to push or pull putts in ways that were not intended. And like so, fixing your setup with almost everything, and especially with chipping, I think is definitely a good insight. That's awesome.
I think the other last thing in terms of setup too is keeping that front French shoulder low. That has been a huge, huge game changer for me on chipping. My shoulders were so tilted like a driver swing. And I can't remember if someone pointed out to me, or I just sort of realized one time that like if I tried to keep this shoulder, I think it was actually the left hand low drill that Matt Fitzpatrick uses and the court. That just like that when I did that, I realized, oh my God, like my shoulder feels so much more natural in this position than when I was doing it before. And my shoulder was sort of up like this. And then I was just making so much better contact with the ball. I still don't like taking that. Like, I know he took that out onto the course, and I've texted you saying like, oh, I need to take this out on the course. I think that's me being overexcited. There's still a lot of like really bad shots that happen with that, and it just doesn't feel comfortable. So I think it's a really great drill just to like get the shoulders more level and focus on keeping the rotation going, because your left arm really restricts you from doing any sort of flipping with your hands. You really have to rotate through the ball. So it's a great drill. But I think when I'm out on the course, I still go right hand low.
I like that as a practice philosophy, though, trying new things and not necessarily taking them on the course, but trying new things while you're practicing to see what you can learn from them and things that you can unwind, right? Like not major swing change things, these just little setup differences, or I don't know how you'd classify. I guess changing your grip would be a setup difference, but I think that's a really cool insight. I think that could be like a guiding philosophy of some of the practice items.
Yeah, I mean, you said it right. Like setup can really make the difference, and I think I've taken that to heart too. But let me run through these last three because I know I've a lot of the time here. So I think we touched on mental and physical a little bit with committing to the golf swing. We touched on strategy with finding a game within the game. We talked about strategy and practice a little bit with the shots gained, practice with the chipping. From the physical perspective, so there's like 180 days, let's say it's 6 months, right, in a golf season. I want to work out 100 of those days. So that's an easy, quantifiable, thing to do. And then from an equipment perspective, I got fit for a new putter, Ryan, this year. It's been 5 years since I got fit for a new putter. So I was sort of losing a little bit of faith in it. And I got fit for a new one. It's one that I've used before, that like on resort courses and stuff like that I used to putt with. And I was like, you know what, let me try this out. But it's the TaylorMade Spider X putter. So I know it's like the most popular putter on tour as well. Like it's a great putter. I really like it. So I'm committing myself to that this year, and hopefully don't have to go between mental gymnastics between going through putters. But yeah, that's sort of the new equipment changes here.
So, sorry, did you say you have that now, or have you taken it on the course? You're waiting for it. Okay, that's what I thought you said. Yeah. Okay, cool. Eager to see how that goes.
And
Yeah.
I got one extra goal for you too, by the way.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah. Well, as you know, and some of our listeners know, I have this bucket list, right, to hit all the 6 US Open public access courses. After Aaron Hills last year, we did 4. We have our Continental coming up this year at Pinehurst #2, or Pinehurst, Resort, where we'll play #2. And I kind of want to make that sort of the culmination of everything. So I just have to get myself up to Seattle, which is not that far from me, living in Southern California, before we play in September. Is that when we're going to Pinehurst?
September, yeah,
September.
that's right.
So right now, I have this sort of like idea shaping in my head around 4th of July weekend. The Blue Jays are playing the Mariners for an ALCS rematch that weekend. So I kind of want to go up, see the game, go to Chambers Bay, knock off that 5th of the 6th, and then finish it off this year with Pinehurst. So that would be sort of the extra goal if we can make it happen. So that's the last one.
I think if you can do that, like that's just an excellent year, no matter what. Like just those 2 trips in and of itself. Like if you can do those 2 trips in the same year, like what a year. What a year. It doesn't matter what else is going on. Those 2 are wins for sure, just making it out there. So yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah. Um so I suppose I could go through my goals here for the year. And then I have one final question. We'll kind of wrap it up on that. But my goals this year, so as you said, for the second time in 3 years, I am expecting a child midsummer. So that kind of dampens my handicap goals and really being ambitious this year. I think I'm feeling really good off of my first couple rounds. But really, I kind of have to treat this year similar to last year. Last year, I had just moved to North Carolina. I was playing a lot of new courses. And one of my goals was to play, I think, 15 new golf courses last year. Made it pretty far on that, not just in North Carolina, but it was a year of new golf courses, new climate, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of change. And this year is going to be similar, just with a little bit more acclimation to the climate, a little bit more understanding of some of the golf courses. Like I'm really excited to get back out and play Duke again. But all that being said, it's just another year focusing on my body, trying to get it in the right shape. I think with this hip thing, I'm making progress. May need to consider surgery at some point. We'll probably have some news on that relatively soon. Overall, like, I mean, that's a major surgery, and having that at around the time you have a new child is also not great timing. So it could be something that's down the line. All that being said, I'm not going to do anything to sacrifice this Pinehurst trip either. So it might just be uh, a year of continuing to do these rehab sort of exercises. But my big physical goal is to get past of just doing these rehab exercises, which may sound really simple, but it's taking up a lot of my time, a lot of my energy. And quite frankly, if I don't do them, I feel like I regress really quickly. And that's certainly not going to help my golf swing at all. So if I can get to doing more standardized golf workouts as I was doing 4 or 5 years ago, I would really, really love that. Working on upper body strength, working on more mobility of shoulders and other joints as well. That's my big goal for this year. Second is a little bit more on the mental side. I think this one is a learning from my recent trip, and maybe it's because I'm in this state where I don't want to set myself back with my hip, but just don't overstress my body. And that might include just playing from the white tees and getting a mental advantage of could I actually, score even par round. I think if I would have done that, even from the white tees on that course that I knew fairly well, I think it would help me get lower scores from the back tees when I get back there as well. That would lead to, I think, one of the big things of not stressing myself on the course is, playing from simpler tees, maybe until I break 80 on a given course from those white tees. I think that's kind of one of my goals. But then, like, leading to an equipment change, I think I'm going to get a push cart this year and just not stress my hip, but keep to walking. I guess that's not really an equipment goal, but
I love a push cart. You know me. You know me. I love the push cart.
I've been resistant to the push cart. I love carrying my bag. But I do think as I've learned more about what's going on, it's actually contributed to my hip issue. It's contributed to the muscles doing work that shouldn't be doing the work, and the inability to get to other muscles to actually do what they're supposed to do. Um, but really, I mean, this year's goals are like the physical and the mental on that side. If I get to a practice goal, it would be similar to what you were talking about, and that's wedges under 100 yards. I want to have less than one hole per round where I hit more than one wedge from 100 yards and in.
Sorry, can you
I
say that?
started,
Sorry, say that more.
yeah, I want to have basically, okay, wedges 100 yards and in. If I am in a situation in a hole where I'm hitting a wedge under like a 89-yard wedge, 72-yard wedge, whatever, into the green, I don't want to miss the green. Similarly, if I have an approach shot and I am off the green, I want to get it on the green with my next shot. Ultimately, in both of those situations, I want to have exactly one shot from 100 yards and in to hit the green.
And are you giving yourself some buffer in a round? You said like you don't want to have more than one hole around where you're basically.
I want to average less than one hole per round where I hit two wedges under 100 yards or more. So I started tracking this. Basically, what it turns into is a line on my scorecard that says wedges under 100 yards. And if I have, on hole 3, I have to scramble for par, that's one wedge, right? If I have a short par 4 where I hit a great drive and I miss the green from 77 yards and then I have to chip on, that's 2. I don't want those. I want less than one hole per round like that. And right now, I would say I haven't done the math on it. I should have done that before we talked, but I would say I'm probably averaging 3 holes around like that. So if I'm going to practice, it's going to be on that.
I think you're giving yourself like a quantifiable goal with this one, like similar to my shots gained that I track through Arcos.
It was hard to come up with something like that, and I think I had to understand what was going on and play 4 rounds and track it and like see what was going on there to even know what success might look like. But I got this idea from when I played with Chris Durr from the Breaking 90 at Erin Hills. When I played it with him out in San Diego one time,
Right.
he was a +3 at the time, and he told me he had very few stats that he tracked anymore. But one of them was if he had a wedge, how far away from the hole did that wedge land, right? And so like that gave him an understanding of like how many birdie chances he's had. And I thought that was really good, that it was like a very simple thing that he knew that led to scoring. And I'm looking at that and I think the biggest thing for me that could lead to better scoring is getting the ball closer to the hole within 100 yards with my wedges.
Use that one too. That's a really good one. I'm gonna track that on my scorecard now.
Yeah.
Frankly, I might track it more than I track greens in regulation. I don't know.
It's to me, it just feels like I love strokes gained, but for this specific scenario, there's so much going on and there's so much variation in what type of shots you're hitting within that like strokes gained didn't do it for me in that department, right? And so if I needed something else, and I just wanted to come up with something simple, something that's not an advanced metric. Sometimes you just need to know how many home runs a guy hits, not his OPS, right?
No. We care about both. On base percentage is an underrated stat. Come on.
I hear you.
The quick question or asterisk, I suppose, to this: what if you're on a fringe and you're using a putter? Does that count?
Yes.
So you really need to be on the green.
I want to be on the green. Yeah. Because I have found that if I am putting from the fringe, then like that's a choice, right? And I don't want to game my own statistic. I think like I do hit wedges from the fringe often too. I don't always putt from the fringe, but I do find that no matter what, like if I putt from off the fringe, I'm usually better off being a foot onto the green than I am being on the fringe, is what my feeling is anyway. Plus, like I said, I know I don't want to game it. I want to make it, I don't want to give myself an opportunity to cheat my own metric, right? So, good question. I think that's it though. I want to keep it simple, and I think that's what I like about the 5 pillars framework. It's like you don't need to put all of your effort into all of these at one time. There's usually just a couple things that'll move the needle. I'm really, I think I proved that continuing on to focus on the physical side is going to help me do what I want to do. So that's really it. Like I don't feel like I've exhausted that one yet. And I think if I continue to go until I exhaust that one, then I'll work on something else. Then maybe it's time to change up my clubs that haven't been changed in 7 years or whatever.
I think
You know?
I think I mean you especially your mental is so interlinked with your physical, like having played with you as much as I have. You can really tell how it affects your game when you just feel like your body is not responding the way you expect it to. I noticed that a lot in California last year. You were just, I think it was when we were playing Sataquai, and it was probably the 14th or 15th hole, and you just were so tired of your hip not clearing, and you you were just so you were ready to just give up and go grab the beer that was promised at the clubhouse. So
Yeah.
that I think that is I think you do hit hit two of those. I think for me, given where I sit, maybe I'm feeling like I can make marginal improvements across all five, as opposed to you. Not saying you've mastered some of these other things, but you're deprioritizing them from a goals perspective. I think for me, it probably makes more sense given where my handicap is relative to yours that I have more goals. I did try to find one for each of the five, admittedly. The equipment was probably the hardest one because I do like my equipment, and we'll see with this new putter. But I thought for the equipment one, you were going to talk about apps. I thought that's where you were going to go with that one.
No, I think it's just an interesting area to talk about. I think there might be, as you know, like I was a big fan of Arcos. It taught me what I needed to learn for that time, and now it's something that I had dropped. I don't know if like maybe it's just the stage that I'm in that it's like not handicap focused. Like it's very much about me and not about my game, if that makes any sense.
Information like I know like Rory and Matt Fitzpatrick and all those guys, like they love all the data, and then there are other guys who are just like they don't want it, like it's just so much more of a feel thing for them.
It's I think for most people, they need to be trained to think like that if they want to lower their score. It might be too much information, but I think sometimes the only way you can really train your mind to work that way is to do it in the first place. And maybe that's where I was, right? Like maybe it's something where I just need to use it for 3 years until like it's ingrained in my brain and I understand like what a good shot and what a bad shot actually is in terms of score, right? But I don't know. So anyway, like we can dig into each individual one. I am kind of searching for what the right answer is on that, but I'm also always looking for ways to go back offline to see if it's better. I am considering getting a rangefinder, which I've never owned a rangefinder,
Really?
and just using that. Yeah, I've never used a rangefinder.
How do you know if you're 87 or 72 yards like you were saying? You just use the card, or you just ask somebody else, or what? How would you know?
No, like I'll use the apps. The apps will tell you like distance, middle, front, back, right? And I think that's where you're using GPS and like those will show up on my watch.
Oh, I see.
And that's what I'll use is those numbers. And it's been pretty successful. I think it'd be a good conversation because that is an interesting one that's like combo strategy plus equipment, if you will. I think that'd be an interesting
I mean, I've
deep dive.
definitely been someone who wants to like lighten the load. I'm not gonna lie, in terms of the things that I carry mentally with me, and so I sometimes find if I know the front, the back, the middle, I think those are all really really helpful. Especially on par threes, I think that's where it's like the most helpful. When you really feel like you're hitting a mid iron or something into a green, and you really don't want to go long, you really don't want to go short, and like know where you can miss. But if I'm, like I said, where the wedges, where I just don't feel like I have the confidence, where I need to have the confidence, just having one number and just focusing on that number, I think is like really, really important. So to your point, maybe it's just lessening the mental load of like having all these numbers in your head and using the watch and knowing all those things, and just like gunning it at the pin or gunning it at the middle of the green or gunning it at bunker, and just saying, okay, all I need to know is I need to be above 85, or all I need to be less than 100, or I need to just hit this 90. You know what I mean? Like, I think those are probably better to just alleviate the mental burden and just swing your free swing, as opposed to having all of that information and then being like, okay, is that like 10 or 1030? And like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just, That's just, I'm trying to, in my wedge game, I'm trying to build more of a feel as opposed to a clock system. One thing I've been experimenting with, and I don't think it's very, I don't know how good it is or not, but I find hitting my wedges anything less than 75% is really, really tough for me to just make good, clean contact. So it's an unreliable number to begin with. So one thing I've been experimenting with is opening the club face for certain wedges and just swinging the 75% shot. So if I need something that goes 60 yards instead of 65, I just feel like, okay, I'm just going to open this up a little bit. Like, I don't know exactly how much I'm opening it up, but I'm going to open this up a little bit, and I'm just going to swing a 75%.
Yeah, that's what I do most of the time. And when I talk about, getting better with the wedges 100 yards and in, it's just getting better at that type of stuff because it's not perfect. And hitting a 55-yard wedge is hard, right? And so I love the idea of opening up the face. That gets into the equipment discussion of do you have the right wedges to do that as well? So I think it's a really good tool to have in your toolkit though, in your short game.
I got those Cleveland wedges last season, as I talked about. That was sort of my big equipment purchase last year, and I've really liked them.
That's awesome to hear.
They're really great. Yeah, really, really
awesome. I love when a good equipment purchase works out like that. All right, I have one question for you, Nick, and then we can wrap it up.
Go for
if
it.
you had a theme for this year, what would the theme for 2026 be?
It's a great question. I don't want it to sound like corny, like progress or something, or confidence. I feel like that's so corny.
Just think of like the year of blank.
The year of... Okay, I'm going to go with something a little bit off the cuff. I'm going to go with the year of Alchemy. And what I mean by alchemy... What I mean by alchemy, and I'm looking at my library and I'm seeing The Alchemist by Coelho, and that's why I probably thought of that. But what actually really inspires me is like we're taking all these different things and we're putting them in the pot together and we're seeing what comes out of it. It's not going to be one specific thing that is going to help me this season. It's going to be the marginal improvements that come from all of these different things. And so we're using alchemy here to improve our game. It's like, the calculus formula, whatever.
I love it.
We're using alchemy to like come up with something that will eventually turn into gold. We're going to take a bunch of iron and we're going to just turn into gold using alchemy. And that's what we're going to try to do this season.
And you're quantifying the best you know how, but you're not quite sure how it's going to turn out.
I
love it.
Alchemy like also speaks to like there being a little bit of magic, right? Like there's a 1 + 1 = 3 element to alchemy. So 2026, the year of alchemy.
I love that. I think that's really good, especially for off the cuff, man. That's solid. I like that.
I'm just staring at my library over here, and that was the first book that I noticed.
Well, shame on me for having my library behind me. That's cool. Mine is not as concise, which is, I think, like one of the things I love about yours. But mine is the year of letting it come to me. I think like it is going to be so hard for me to strive toward any single goal based on life circumstances this year that I don't know, quite frankly, what I'm going to actually be able to accomplish. What I've seen so far this year is that if I continue to focus on my body, good things will come of it because there are things that I just have not been able to do in my golf game of the last couple of years because of this issue. But I think like almost more importantly, I don't need to go out and push myself on the golf course to prove anything to myself this year in a way that I wanted to a few years ago, right? Like I had my couple years of going out and playing Torrey Pines from as far back tees as I possibly could and seeing how well I could score on a 7,000 yard plus course when the rough is up high, right? Like I've gone out and I've punished myself on a golf course, and quite frankly, like that's just not that appealing this year. I want to play good golf courses. I want to play tough courses. But I almost feel like it's probably a little bit better for my body and maybe better for breaking through certain mental ceilings if I just go out and hit a bunch of 3-woods from the white tees and a bunch of 4-irons and just try to get on the green and focus on ingraining some mental patterns of like knowing I can hit 11 greens around, 12 greens around, and those types of things that'll just like ingrain it in me, take a push cart, just have a different golf experience this year than I've had for ever, quite frankly. I've never taken that much pressure off myself to perform. And I feel like it's like it's kind of like the grip in the golf swing itself. Like you need it to be solid, but you can't grip it too hard or you're not going to get your end goal. Like that's how I'm thinking about the year. So the year of letting it come to me.
Yeah, I like that. Just not trying to force it, not trying to create unforced errors, I think is like a real important thing to do in golf, right? Like to your point, not trying to we talk about this a lot in terms of strategy, right? Like not necessarily forcing an issue with a certain shot or a certain hole, but avoiding sort of the unforced errors, I think is like a big part of golf. And so, yeah, just taking it easy, man. I think that's probably what you need to do. Just let it come to you a little bit.
Yeah. Maybe I'll have more beers during the round. I don't know.
It's have you ever heard this term sexy indifference? It like describes people who have like a very like captivating way about them by just their like general sort of not apathy, that's the wrong word, but just sort of irreverence to everything and anything. Like they're just sort of like whatever, but like they still succeed somehow. And people say like, oh, it's just so easy for this person. And maybe it's not. Maybe there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but there's definitely this persona of like this sexy indifference of like, maybe it helps me, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. We'll just figure this out. Like, I think that's sort of the persona that you're trying to emulate is like the sexy indifference persona as it relates to golf.
I love it. I'm gonna be the guy that shows up and plays around in flip-flops with 30-year-old clubs and it's too over.
You're gonna be John Daly. Like that's
Yeah.
that's your mental like icon right there. That's you just want to be cigarette hanging out of the mouth, Diet Coke, like,
The year of bad habits is what you're saying.
just I challenge you to play the golf course barefoot one time. That's my challenge.
That sounds great. Actually, we should I think you can do that. Can you do that at the Cradle? Maybe we do that at the Cradle. I would love to do some barefoot par 3 golf. That sounds fantastic.
Do you have any of these goals or anything that you want to do before we get to Pinehurst? Like I know all I know is I want to be playing my best golf because Pinehurst demands your best golf.
I think what my takeaway from this
Physical stuff, like maybe your physical stuff is like a better thing to sort of like hit on before.
this would have been a very different answer before my trip to Arizona, but like the physical stuff is an element of it, but I think like what I showed myself is that the game that I can be comfortable with at Pinehurst is there. I just have to take care of my body and not detrain during a time where I'm not going to be able to play a ton. And just I need to just make sure I maintain the foundation. And then I can show up and I can focus on having a good time. And I'm not that worried about getting my game in shape for this trip in the same way that I was with Aaron Hills. I think there were so many different variables last year that I didn't know about. I didn't know how I was going to play these courses with all these trees. I didn't know how I was going to deal with the different grass types, the different climate to get through it as I was trying to work up to that trip. So for this year, I think it's a little simpler. Maybe it's the fact that it's relatively local and I don't have to travel, and like it just makes it seem more casual and laid back to me, even though it is Pinehurst. But I don't think there's like one big goal other than just keep it together. Let it come to me. Let it come to me.
All right.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yes.
2026, the year of letting it come to you. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so cool, man. Well, anything else you wanted to cover today?
No, I think that's a good way to kick off the 2026 season. And obviously, to all of our listeners, if you guys have thoughts about things you want us to talk about on the episode, if there are things that, you feel have helped you, like obviously reach out to us. Ryan, do you want to like go through our socials?
We have socials. We should probably add that to the outro. Yeah.
We'll cut this section here.
We should probably add that to the outro, and we should talk about what we want to do, because I think we should, in order to get a little more distribution, we should do some promotion this year. But
yeah, I think maybe 2026 is also the year we really take this podcast to the next level. Try to, improve listener engagement. I think we'll obviously open up an Instagram account. We'll open up a comment section. We want to hear from you guys, and really, try to build the platform that we started last year, but maybe have this be a bit more of a catalyst year to take this thing to the next level. So can't do that. Be listening out there, and we're eager to hear your feedback. So
Absolutely. And if we can build this Pinehurst trip into something special, I think that would be, well, it's going to be something special regardless, but really trying to build up the Continental event itself. So that'd be a good way to do that as well. So,
yeah.
All right, man.
Okay.
Well,
good to connect as always, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Low Point. If you like what you heard, please subscribe or leave a review. If you want to learn more, you can check us out at thelowpointpod.com. We'll be back soon with another episode. Until next time, be kind to yourself and enjoy the process.